It was November 9, 2005, at 6:15 a.m. 31-year-old Darlene Gentry called McLennan County 911 and reported waking up to find her husband's gun cabinet empty, the back door wide open, and him on their bed covered in blood. He's making a god-awful sound, she told the operator. Officers raced to the scene and found 31-year-old Keith Gentry suffering from a gunshot wound to the head, clinging to life. He was rushed to the hospital where he was placed on life support and ultimately pronounced brain dead. The small tight-knit community of Robinson, Texas was understandably shaken and couldn't understand who would have wanted the loyal and loving father of 3 dead.
When he stood up there and said, we rest, I was in such a total state of shock.
As it would turn out, the person who had the answers they sought was Keith's very own wife, with beautiful blonde hair and a big bright smile. Darlene was a sight for sore eyes. She loved to be the center of attention, and with her outgoing personality, she often was. After high school, the former prom queen attended Texas State Technical College. It was there Darlene met Keith. After only 8 months of dating, she knew Keith was the one for her, but he wasn't so sure. The couple broke up, and a heartbroken Darlene moved away to Dallas for a fresh start. A year later, the pair reconnected, and this time, Keith was ready to settle down. The couple married in 1999, moved next door to Keith's parents in Robinson, Texas, and had 3 boys. Darlene became a nurse and Keith, an electrical engineer. On the outside peering in, the Gentrys appeared to be one big happy family, but what their friends and family didn't know was that they were riddled with debt due to Darlene's out-of-control spending habits. The constant fighting tore the couple apart, but Keith was determined to make the marriage work. Darlene didn't feel the same way, and she showed those feelings with a bullet straight to the back of her husband's head as he slept. Darlene told officers she had gone out with friends the night before, and when she returned home at 8:30 p.m., Keith confronted her about a credit card bill. The couple began arguing, and Darlene went for a drive to cool down. When she returned, the couple made up and Keith went to sleep in their room while she slept in their son's room because they were sick. Darlene said she awoke to find the back door wide open and Keith's gun cabinet empty. As she walked into their bedroom, she found her husband face down with foam coming out of his mouth and blood pouring out of his head. She frantically reached for her cell phone and called 911. Darlene was adamant a burglar had broken into their home, stolen Keith's firearms and shot him in the head, but there were no signs of forced entry and the glass gun cabinet had been accessed with a key. Officers didn't have to look far for Keith's firearms. Bizarrely, they had all been neatly stacked in the front yard, all but one. A .22 caliber revolver was missing. It was then officers looked at each other and said, "I think she did it." Officers interviewed Darlene for 1 hour at the police station, and she never once inquired about her husband's condition. She had just discovered her husband on the edge of death, and yet, there seemed to be no tears streaming down her face, no bewilderment in her voice. And officers would soon discover, no regard for her husband's life. Darlene was a registered nurse, and yet, she had not even attempted to administer first aid to her dying husband. She claimed to have been in a state of shock but wasted no time in signing his life away. Darlene took Keith off life support shortly after he arrived at the hospital. Officers searched the Gentry home for evidence, and they didn't have to look far. In the kitchen garbage can, they found a pair of latex gloves along with the casing of a .22 caliber bullet. Both were sent off for forensic testing, and when the results came back, officers learned they were right to be suspicious of Darlene all along. Gun residue containing both her and Keith's DNA was found on the gloves and the casing. 19 days after her husband's murder, Darlene was arrested and hauled off to jail, but she wouldn't be there for long. Keith's parents had always loved Darlene and believed there was no way she could have been involved in the murder of their son. They graciously paid Darlene's $50,000 bond, and after only a few hours in jail, she was once again a free woman. Darlene's first task was to call her longtime acquaintance Robert Pavelka. She inquired whether he had any land to sell on which she could build a home for her and her 3 children, stating she could no longer live in the house where she became a widow. Robert responded he in fact did have some land to sell, and it even came with a pond. Darlene was ecstatic. Her late husband loved to take the boys fishing, and what better way to keep his memory alive? However, a few weeks later, Darlene changed her mind. She still wanted the home, but not the pond. Darlene asked Robert if he could have the pond filled in, and he immediately became suspicious. It was the reason she had even wanted the land to begin with. Wary of Darlene's true intentions, Robert phoned a friend at McLennan County Sheriff's Office, and soon enough, a dive team was searching his pond with officers standing by. Lo and behold, Keith's missing .22 caliber revolver, gifted to him by his father, was recovered. Robert, now working as an agent for the state, called Darlene and told her he would gladly have the pond filled if she was still interested in buying the land. She was. Of course, in order for the pond to be filled it had to be drained first, he told her. Darlene stated she would like to be there when the pond was drained. Her request only solidified officers' suspicions. Robert told Darlene the pond would be drained in 2 days. 2 officers hid in the bushes across the pond with a camera and waited. Sure enough, when Darlene arrived she walked straight into the pond and began poking around with a stick, in the exact area the gun had been found. Prosecutors argued Darlene killed Keith to fund her shopping habit. The bills were beginning to pile up, and when Keith confronted his wife, she decided he was worth more dead than alive. His $750,000 life insurance policy was the answer to all of her problems. Darlene proclaimed her innocence. She insisted she only searched the pond for the murder weapon because she heard a rumor it had been thrown in there by the real killer. She claimed she feared the police would have used it to frame her had they found it first. Darlene filed a motion to have the video suppressed from the trial, but it was denied and she sat in silence as jurors watched her seal her fate. Darlene was found guilty of murder, and in February of 2007, she was sentenced to 60 years in prison. She will be eligible for parole in 2037. Keith Gentry kept guns in his house for protection. Little did he know he was already sleeping. Thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed it and wish to see more, click the subscribe button alongside with the notification bell. You can also like the video and comment to let us know about your thought on this case, as well as if you want us to cover any other one.